guess I have to get on camera. Hi, this is Georgine Adams. Welcome to the May 24, 2023 EMC meeting. We have quorum, and so calling the meeting together in order at 9:05. I think we're going to have a shorter meeting today. Yay, everybody go yay.
Yay.
On the other hand, it depends on what DEM is going to be talking about. I think it's going to be finally give them enough time to go through their reports. And Peter, you switched it. Good. I was getting tired of leaning over. Any rate, to the agenda. The first item is the approval of minutes from April 25th. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, seeing none. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes? Second? Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none.
Wait,
minutes.
hold on. Dill?
Oh. Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Aye from Dell. Just to do we have anybody online listening? Or is it just us?
Yes, we do have people online.
Okay. As I said, I'm Georgine Adams from District 9. John Burns from District 1 is not able to make it today. We also have from District 2, Laura Casio. Wave, Laura. Del Otsuka is on the phone, so you hear her voice occasionally. And John Olson is here in Kona from District 4. Lee McIntosh on the screen from District 6. We still have District 7 open, so if you know anybody in Kona District 7, encourage them to apply for us. And we have District 8, a new member who just got sworn in, Dorothy Norris, and welcome. And you go by Dot? Yes, I do. Okay. And speaking of which, moving to the next item as a statement, Dot, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? And we'd appreciate, and we're very happy that you've joined us. I think we're picking up someone who's very knowledgeable and going to keep us on our toes. So that's great.
I hope so. I've been retired for about 6 years, so it's kind of like it's still in my DNA though. I work in wastewater in California and in the city of San Diego and in the city and county of San Francisco. As a marine biologist, I worked in a lot of watershed issues as well. But mostly offshore and activities that make up the nearshore areas. I worked in wastewater evaluation and worked on a lot of the reports. And I was particularly part of the wastewater reporting to EPA and the state Coastal Commission. And that's me.
Great. So how long have you been in
Hawai'i? About 6 years. I retired.
Good choice. Good choice. Moving on to item 4, public statements from the public. We got no written comments. Is anybody on the line want to make public comments? Seeing none, I will then move on. You're welcome if we come to an item and you go, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that. You'll have that opportunity. Moving on to number 5, our first substantive item is unfinished business. And I just saw Chris sit down so we can ask him, how's that pre-treatment proposal going?
It's still unfinished. I'm going to commit to finishing that up this weekend. I don't get time here at work to get things like that done. What I can say is we had a pretty good meeting with DOH last week, I think, about their strategies for when they're going to require something instead of on-site wastewater treatment. So like when they're going to require subdivision to have a package plant, when they're going to require them to extend sewer, that kind of thing. So I think this time I really do have everything I need to finish off our proposed changes, because that's going to include, I'm going to propose that we bring back control over sewers for subdivisions into our chapter and take it away from the subdivision section, because we need to make that clear and we need to be consistent.
Good.
So yeah.
We have John Olson like to make a comment.
I'm going to be very interested to hear more about that, having all of the subdivisions that we have in Puna. You know, that's
yeah, well, the existing subdivision is still going to be I mean, this is a huge problem that we're going to have to figure out how to address.
Yeah,
they're already built.
I've only known that for 30 years.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've brought it up on several occasions, and it seems like you're the only one that's actually been able to say something about it.
Well, I have some ideas on how we can strategize for that, but you know, it comes down to the same basic problems: money, staff, schedule, that kind of thing, and the political will to make it happen.
Well, and I'm more interested in the logistics of making it happen, because they're already built.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is going to be a major problem.
Mm.
I mean, and that, you know, we have the second largest subdivision in the United States. So I really want to hear more about it.
Well, as you see, John, every meeting I've got it on the agenda, and so we'll keep bugging Chris or whoever's left in the chair.
I mean, well, just to add one other thing, you know, Pahoa means the Pahoa Business Association, Pahoa Main Street. You know, we have gotten to the point where we succeeded in getting monies for an advanced treatment facility for Pahoa. We've gotten to the point where Russell Ruderman, when he was our senator, got us money for a regional library. All of those things need to be connected. And that's an ASAP. That money is sitting there, and without that infrastructure, they're not going to get built.
How much money are we talking?
I don't have an exact figure, but $8–10 million just for to open the door.
Interesting.
I mean, you could contact Joy Buenaventura, our state rep, and I'm sure she would be happy to pass along all the data.
So those would be new facilities that would require pre-treatment because they're significant commercial
medical
activities.
Is a no-go without a, you know, wastewater system.
Yeah.
And the library, if you're going to put up a real library, you know, you're talking about a whole lot of people, you know, going through the facility. And then, you know, we have a new supermarket, and then there certainly is going to be the impetus to do a lot of building out there because the subdivisions are building out.
I think, Georgian, this is topic that pertaining to the ACON report and the Puna district study that we just completed. So I don't want it to commingle with the pretreatment countywide.
I agree. Let's pick it
so,
back up.
But I think Kelly and Chris will give more update as we move forward on exactly what John just brought up.
Good. I agree. I think it goes into the reports on the facility work you guys have been doing later in your report, but also it includes the concept of now we're going to have pretreatment rules at some point in the near future. They need to deal with the fact that these side plans are happening to build new facilities. They're going to require pretreatment. And is that being factored in? And how do you make sure that proper coordination is occurring as they design those new operations?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
We'll get back to that, John, and you can further that conversation. Next item under 5 is 2. I'm bringing back the same old thing I showed you the last week, our last meeting on how do we look for opportunities to require diversion from landfill via county ordinance. And what I would like to do, number one, is just see if there are people who've come up with new ideas. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it. But then I'd also like to get at least a consensus, if not an official motion, to do some further work on devising a draft ordinance or approach. So are there some comments that people wanted, commissioners wanted to make about diversion ideas?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ideas. Back when we had just received our, I don't know how to, the word I'm looking for, the fact that we had filed a civil rights complaint about the level of service that was going on in Puna. We got a positive from the federal government on it. It started with transportation. Solid waste was an issue. We started on looking at where other transfer stations could be built, enlarged. The KL transfer station got I don't remember what the figure was. It was a number of zeros to do a much larger transfer station with recycling, with a whole list of things that it would do. And that's all still sitting on the shelf. None of those things happened, even though the money was appropriated to do it. All we got through basically was phase 1.
Well, I think Ramsey is also going to be talking about the operations study that the department has money to get done, and looking at the whole system of how we manage solid waste will be part of that. So if I can defer you once again to Ramsey's part, what I'm talking about specifically is the idea of banning from landfill certain materials that we know we have a diversion route for. That is our high 5, the glass, corrugated cardboard, the recycling that we have that appears to be working, but how do we do more of it? And so my concept is, and what I would like to see if the commission would back me up in spending more time on working up a proposal, perhaps for next meeting, is to write up a bill that would, or a bill that would go to the council to say certain designated recyclable wastes are prohibited from landfill. We have a system now that has prohibited materials, and they're basically hazardous stuff that tires and used oil and other materials that have to basically go to a hazardous waste facility. So I came up with this term in my head so far of designated recyclable materials that we wouldn't be able to landfill. And not that we want the council to identify what those are. I don't want to go there. I would prefer to say the council to have DEM identify what those materials should be. And as you may recall from last time I was talking about, there's certain categories of information that need to qualify a kind of waste to be a designated recyclable that's prohibited from landfill. Things like we know there's a market that will take it. We know how to handle it. It's pretty well defined, and it's going to be a significant reduction to our landfill. The other thing that was my newer idea is to start first with commercial operations. So businesses, certainly start with the large businesses, maybe work our way down to the smaller businesses, but to apply it first to them, get the logistics set up, create a supply stream that would be coming from commercial operations that might entice some private haulers and processors, recyclers to come into business because they would have that steady stream coming from the commercial end. And then once we've got that rolling, maybe move it down to residential or start with things like developments, outfits that have HOAs that can be required to develop the collection for recyclable waste. And then it would go to DEM, and DEM would follow these basic criteria, and they would periodically identify, here's something that we're designated as recyclable, and it has to be diverted. And that may change as markets evaporate or markets appear. They could add new materials and expand it or take them away because we don't have a reasonable ability for it. So that's kind of the concept I'm thinking about, a general all-purpose ordinance that would authorize and in fact charge DEM, come up with this system that will require certain recyclables to be diverted. And then we'd have an opportunity as a commission to comment on both the bill and on any rules that DEM comes up with to make sure that it is meeting the proposals that we intended. So you want me to work on that? Anybody else interested in working on that with me? Or should I just say, all right, we'll let DEM do this. They've heard me 3 times now.
This is Commissioner McIntosh. Who made the rules for the current items that are not allowed to go in the landfill? Was that passed by ordinance or was that policy by DEM?
The ones that are banned now, many of them are from US EPA and then built and required to be managed that way as it rolls down to the state and then the county. The charter, not the charter, the code, the county code has a list of these prohibited materials. And I don't have it with me right now. Like I said, things like medical waste and oil and your all-purpose general nasties that you don't want to put in a landfill. And then DEM and their admin rules. Interestingly, the code itself, the county code does not say they're prohibited and can't go into the landfill. What it says is DEM will prohibit them, and they have prohibited them, and you can get an exception from the director. So there's a little bit more flexibility from DEM, but DEM actually executes the prohibition. The county didn't, they just defined stuff. Kind of, anyway, so it's kind of a tiered system as you're moving from feds to state to county to DEM. So there's some details I need to figure out how to make work.
Okay, I mean, I think that's fine. The only concern I have is how do you keep DEM from becoming ban happy and just banning what's convenient for them? In a worst case scenario, that's what I always look for when moving forward with policies and laws. Where's the checks and balances?
So the idea, at least my idea right now, is that the council would say, these are the criteria that any designated recyclable waste has to meet. And I listed out some of those things the last time of things like, you know, we've got a place to take it, whether it's shipping it off island or our own recycling, that it's cost effective, that you're not going to encourage people to throw it in the ditch because it costs too much to recycle it. So balancing the economic costs, it has to be technically feasible, and it needs to make sense from a life cycle management standpoint to divert it from waste. Some waste, I don't know if you've gone back and looked at that life cycle assessment, plastic, the non high five plastics are probably safest sitting in a landfill from a life cycle standpoint. We could put them to better use by requiring diversion, and at commercial level volumes might be able to justify a business coming into fruition to handle those kinds of waste. So it's a juggling, but the county council would set, these are their criteria that DEM has to be able to justify banning landfill. And so that you can challenge a DEM rule saying, you're not following these criteria that the council laid out. Could they go crazy? Well, we can all go crazy. And one of the advantages of DEM is they don't move too fast, you might have noticed. So I don't think they'll go real crazy trying to ban it.
Okay. The only thing I have other concern about is the green waste. Yeah, they have a spot in Kona where you can take it, but nothing down here. So then, you know, we don't want to truck it all the way up to Kona, which is a 3-hour round trip. So yeah, that was the only concern I had.
Yeah, and the feasibility of collection needs to be one of those criteria, which is partly why start with commercial, because they're located in just a few spots. And so maybe there's a way to justify at commercial volumes trucking it to the few places we've got. But again, it would be one you've got to look at, can you justify that it really can be recycled and conveniently before you would ban it for residents, for example.
Okay, so go ahead and write it up.
That's one. Others, Laura?
Chair, so I am very interested in this as well, and would like to help and participate. I see just going on Commissioner McIntosh's comment around green waste is to look at distributed smaller scale green waste facilities throughout our large island to address, for example, what he did mention around the need to not truck it different places. And what does that look like in terms of redistribution as well? And of course, taking into consideration the cost effectiveness as well. But it becomes relative because what is the larger cost? So anyways, On that note, I also wanted to really look at, which I feel like is related, but it's another side of it, which is looking at large businesses, for example, Costco, it takes, for example, not to just point them out, but as an example, their business model and those business models that they're distributing is creating lots of, large amounts of landfill waste, especially around plastics, being that they repackage and repurpose and then sell it out in that business model. It's all in plastic and there is no reuse structure. And so I know this is a large issue that we're looking at even on a world scale in terms of EPR or reuse and refill infrastructure, but to engage that as part of a larger solution as well.
This is not the be-all answer to the whole gamut. Certainly EPRs it. I'm trying to come up with something that is digestible, which is also recycle. Yeah, so something that we could get our arms around that would be relatively practical in a shorter term rather than long term. And as infrastructure builds up, as we move to that distributed composting, that would start meeting the criteria that it needs to be available for recycle, because you've got a place to take it and not just 6 transfer stations on you.
Yes.
So it's kind of chicken and egg, and how do you prompt more eggs to be laid?
Yes, I think it's definitely an important endeavor.
Okay. Others?
I would not quick comment.
Sure.
On when I first moved into the complex that I'm in, they had recycling bins for high five items, and they took them out because they were sources of people throwing just whatever they want to in there. So there, you might think about if we get to that point that we take it off the property of the complex, so that it doesn't become a source of trash and that sort of thing. Maybe like you said, a collection center or something to that effect.
One of the fantasies I have about this approach would be the requirement that says you're prohibited from landfill, you must recycle the following materials, is that, and you must educate your customers, your homeowners, to what the rules are for recycling and to manage the collection of recycling. I have the same issue at the condo area that I live in, that people don't understand my pictures of zigzags on corrugated cardboard. They put everything in there, including plastic containers. So it is a challenge to educate and to make sure that you have a process in place to make it work. And the same place in a workplace. People throw the wrong things in. And so you need to have a live education program to make sure that it's working. One of the things that I would like to avoid is building up a new service that the county has to provide. I don't really want the county to have to plant more transfer stations, more collection stations everywhere for every subdivision or condo development. But to encourage that there is business volume if you want to get your trucks moving around on this island. So get the private community confident enough that there's a sustainable business for them to get into. So it's a lot of balancing it. Anybody else? So as I understand it, and here we have Sherry Tavares, our legal counsel. If Laura and I want to work on it as two people, we can do that. Absolutely. And we don't need an official pig. So thank you for volunteering, and I will share drafts and maybe we could start working this and appreciate the backing. It may be something that I wind up going independently. Anyway, I've been talking to a recycling hauler, Nick Resnick from Honolulu Recycling, and Jennifer Navarra of the Island Zero Waste. I always forget the order of the words about this concept. And he's there going, if I've got a commercial business, which is mostly what he's picking up now, I've got the volume to expand. And what we need is a way to push to say, you're going to make it happen, businesses. And again, I'll work with you, Laura. Thank you. Moving on. And if you have other ideas, bring them. We will have this on the next agenda. Again, I'm trying to keep it not solving all the problems, just some problems, and do it stepwise. New business, item 6. We sent a letter. I think you put it in the package, Peter, a while back, a couple of years ago, to the council. At that time, it was cast in terms of give DEM some money to hire somebody to come up with how they're going to fund the wastewater program, other than relying on just sewer fees. And there's this concept of enterprise fund, basically running the operation as a business where you've got enough customers and they're paying fees to cover your operating costs. And you're not just relying on the ups and downs of property tax and a small proportion of support and grants that you go run and chase down every couple of years. So wondering if we could ask for the same kind of consideration for solid waste, to think of it more in terms of a fee for service model instead of, and heaven forbid they reduce the property tax that gets assigned to solid waste. But assuming that could happen, that it's basically you're paying for this service the county is providing. There are different ways to do it. It's a different kind of model, and I don't know if Ramsey would like to pipe up about it, but just wondering if that's another route for us to look at how can we sustain and grow our solid waste management program, other than relying on the 4% of property tax that is, and some fairly piddly tipping fees that are basically supporting our solid waste management program. You want to comment? Are you on, Ramsey? If you had anything to say about that, Craig, you can pipe in.
I guess we can, when we get to the reports, as we give the reports, we could drive into it, because it is part of the operational study as well, because there's going to be a wide discussion on that. So if you don't mind, rather than being segmented.
Well, you're up next, so it's an easy transition here.
All right, if I'm next, then let's take it on.
Okay. Well, let's do it in order. Otherwise, it drives Peter crazy when he's trying to track on the minutes. But I just wanted to. It dawned on me not too long ago that we did put in the concept of fee for service and as an enterprise funding mindset for water management, wastewater management. We didn't do the same thing for solid waste. it's in there as one of the many options in the integrated solid waste management plan, but we haven't specifically highlighted it to the council. So it's something that, you know, if we wanted to, we can kind of model a new thing aimed at solid waste.
I think this
but this report, this analysis that Ramsey's going to tell us about will certainly inform that. So,
but this question came up, I think, a few meetings back, and if I recall, council, I think, was going to look at the legality of what would it take to take the solid waste out of the property tax as currently exists and try to make it as an enterprise fund, because currently under the shorter, solid waste services is funded through property taxes. Therefore, it's already dictated where we're going to get the fund from, especially for residential, not commercial. Commercial are getting charged through tip fees. So the idea from a legal way, how could we transition? And I think it may require a ballot that may go to the constituents to vote on if they want to be exited out of the property structure, tax structure, into set it as a fee. So I don't know if you guys or us ever got the answer on that, but I thought
I don't think EMC formally ever asked corporate counsel to do that. Okay. How do we ask for that, Sherry?
Just simply ask for it. Like how you ask Kira to do research on, you know, formalizing something. You just have to put a official ask, make a motion, vote on it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that figure out how to cast the question. What we'd be asking is, how would we move from a property tax supported solid waste management program to a fee for service program?
Right.
What steps would need to happen to change a property tax allocation? And
because to me, if we don't get that answer, I hate to waste time and energy and find out later that we cannot do it anyway.
Well, so do we need a motion to ask that question? And if so, will somebody make a motion?
So moved.
And I see a second from Laura. Was that what this was?
I'll second.
Second, yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Wait, sorry, can you see the motion?
The motion is to ask council, corporation council, to evaluate what the steps are, if it's even doable, to move from a property tax based support for solid waste management to a fee for service model.
One of the things you might go looking for, we did get federal money way back when to do the KL transfer station, the rehab of the KL transfer station. Unfortunately, that was never finished. In other words, all of the facilities that were supposed to be put in place there never did happen. But that was spoken to on a multiplicity of levels, and I can't find my copy of it anymore.
I don't know the name, but have you guys in DEM ever been able to find that old KL work? I think it moldered away in a container truck that Recycle Hawai'i had and is long gone.
Somebody said,
but they shouldn't have had the official. I mean, it was government money, yeah, so there should be a heck of a file somewhere.
And I mean, we hired from a list that was presented to us by EPA of people who came to help us do that. So it wasn't just something pulled out of the bag.
Yeah, somebody's got to go dig into archives, Ramsey.
What year was that, John?
Was it 2000?
No, way before that. That was 90, I'm gonna say 94, 95.
Wow.
Wait, that's only 5 years before that.
So almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Everything is 30 years ago, isn't it, Ramsey?
So
Well, I mean, yeah, we made a lot of trouble with abandoned cars at that time because all of the subdivisions had been filled with abandoned vehicles. And that's where we started, and that's where we got the most help from EPA.
well, there's always funding through EPA. So, I mean, especially now under the climate change and diversion and recycling. So hopefully that will continue, even though, you know, whatever funding mechanism that become the standard, we may stay the status quo on property tax, or, you know, or we may chase something else, but that should not stop us from chasing federal money when it comes to.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's gravy we can add into our programs when we're starting something new. But
So
it seems like you need to have at least some steady state dealing with your operations and maintenance program, and to do that by fees for service.
Right.
So you understand the question is, okay, and we've talked about it. Now, anybody else want to make some discussion?
No, only Ramsey, you're probably spending 2 or 3 hours a day eating and sleeping. So you're gonna have to ramp it up.
Could you define sleeping for me, please?
You know, you're asleep.
Yeah.
All right, I want to vote. Everybody raise their hand.
do you need a
or
roll call?
say aye. Do you want a
Or-
roll call? There's only 6.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody say aye, including Dell. Are you still on, Dell?
I'm still here.
Aye. Aye.
6 eyes.
All right. Motion is passed, and corporate counsel, do your thing. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7. This is the reports and correspondence from EM. So take it away, Ramsey.
All right, let's go item by item, I guess. Legislation. I think Peter has been sharing with you, you know, what went through and not, but there's one particular one I wanted to share with you today is resolution that came from the state to the mayor's office. It was forwarded to us from the House of Representatives. It's number 208, which allows counties within the state to submit, it's asking all counties to submit the comprehensive integrated wastewater management plan and financial strategy, including any proposed legislation to the legislature no later than 20 days prior to the convening of regular session of 2024. So that only leaves us with, 6 months to do that. So it just, we received that last week. I guess part of it is because none of the bills pertaining to cesspool conversion went through, which is unfortunate, but I think that's why that resolution came about. So I thought, you guys need to be aware of this one.
Well, it seems like you're working on the integrated wastewater management concept, and
Yes.
no way is it going to be done in 6 months. The idea of what kind of additional you know, funding and planning for the future, pull together your wish list, but
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at financial strategy. I think part of it is maybe the state is willing to assist in the financial aspect of getting people assistance to convert from cesspool to septic or connect to sewer. So, you know, it's funny, but it's just the timing. It's just like, maybe, you know, we still working on it, but I don't know what other counties already have it ready. So it's going to be hard to accomplish, but you are right. We're working on it. We're trying to enter into an agreement with our consultant to do a countywide master cesspool conversion, fact plans for the east and west side of the island. Also to, as an optional task, to update the operation maintenance manuals for all of our facilities. So that's, we haven't even signed the contract, but they are aware of this resolution. But I don't know if we're going to have anything that comprehensive to submit. We may have the skeleton, the structure of it.
yeah, I think that's all you're going to be able to do is say, here's what we're working on. Here are the components that are going to be in there. And this brilliant list of items to make sure you include in it that you receive from your EMC. And the rest of it is what was recommended in the cesspool work group plan that didn't pass. And I don't understand why they drug their heels on that. But I think, at least the way I was hearing Rep. Lowen explaining what happened, that it would be, you know, we've got the plan to look at the priority areas that we've identified those. It's then we got to work out how are we going to sewer these areas, or look for the most feasible alternatives. So I think you've got the bones of it. You just, you know, here are the details we're going to be fleshing out. And no, we're not going to hand you a finished plan in 6 months. Okay, I'm okay with that. Anybody else?
Well, Kelly and I have been brainstorming already about how to approach it, and that's basically what we came up with. We haven't pitched it to the directors yet, but I think the important thing is, hey, we have a dollar amount for each cesspool. It's $40,000. The state needs to give us that amount times however many cesspools we figure out there are, and that's a starting line for a budget they need to provide.
There you go.
Commissioner. Yeah, so just on that note too, as it is a, you know, the cesspool working group, conversion working group had come up with some pretty clear direction. So that right there is a starting point. And actually it's a leaping point, but yeah, because it wasn't passed in the legislation in the session, this session, then we just have to, we can still utilize that expertise and all of that energy that was put into the working group to begin with and go from there.
This is Commissioner McIntosh. Since it's a resolution, you don't have to, it's not a mandate to comply, right? It's more like they're asking for it, but if you can't deliver, you can't deliver. Just tell them it's unreasonable.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It's a resolution. But yeah, I think we should be constructive. Like Laura was saying, we need to leverage the work that's already been done to have a consistent approach. But yeah, they need to pass some legislation to make this happen. And they also need to figure out how they're going to fund us.
Well, the idea, it is resolution, it's non-binding, but the challenge that every county faces is we have to partner with the state. Even though it's a resolution, we cannot just shrug it off and because it may put us, you know, a black dot on the county of Hawaii for future financial assistance. So we don't want to do that.
No, I certainly don't think it should be blow them off, but it's give them the bones of what we're already working on.
Right.
Yeah, and it may be their passive aggressive way of asking us for support. You know, if we reiterate what everyone else has already talked about, yeah, we agree this is the way to go, then I think that helps them.
Comments from anybody else? Any other commissioners?
Hi. Chair Adams. On that note, it is important because it just showing that the county is indeed supportive of, you know, the work that either the DEM already has that Ramsey mentioned and or the working group conversion. And so garnering support and coming from the county, while they do already have that evidence, for whatever reason, they're asking for more details and more specifics according to each island or each county, I should say. So yeah.
I think DEM has demonstrated support. I've been one of the more vocal testifiers to support a lot of the legislation. So I don't think there's a problem. Plus Lowen's from here, that they know, you know, we're working on it. And so just write up what we're working on. I think we're headed in the right direction, and just do what you can. Don't go too crazy. You do have to sleep at least a couple hours.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it's a good opportunity, you know, just for us to communicate, you know, from the county's Big Island's perspective. Big Island is going to have some unique challenges, so it's just coming to the table, providing that information to the state.
Yeah.
Can't happen soon enough.
So do you want to comment about, oh, wait a minute, I've got it later on the agenda. Go, proceed. Any other legislative issues?
Line item 2, the solid waste division projects and updates. Definitely I have Greg on the line as far as recycling and landfill diversions update. Kind of it links to item 1, 2 together, I think it's, and possibly 3 as well. So the intent of this operational analysis that we're trying to do is to analyze the current system, the solid waste system that the county has, and be able to give recommendations where the weaknesses are. Is the current structure or system is adequate? And where should we put our energy to modify it to be better and more efficient? And then tend to look at the possibility of curbside collection versus the current system that we have with 21 transfer station countywide. Is that possible? And what would it take to implement, and how much projected the cost projection would be? Also looking at the possibility of landfill locations, right? Is it possible to continue with what we have now versus revisit the idea of East Side landfill is needed, just to become more efficient, carbon emission reduction, environmental protection, less traffic on the highways, and provide redundancy. We've seen that during the last eruption we have, when we considered Saddle Road would be closed down. So the idea is, how would you transport the waste from the east side all the way to the west? It become challenge. So the idea of that operational analysis is to get to the weeds and evaluate the current structure. Definitely, I would like for all commission members to add inputs to the study, because possibly it could be driven to lead to policies and procedure changes. And we have to be transparent. We have to get everyone involved, all stakeholders, for the idea that if the system itself is going to change, we need to get everyone on board from day one, so there will be no surprises down the road. So this is what the vision I have when I first started. We didn't get the money last year. This current year, we get the money. So the idea is I want to use it before we lose it, to make sure that we moving on the right track when it comes to our current system. So any you want to, I'll open it for discussion and see what you guys have to say.
And this, John, is your time to jump in and say, okay, we got Puna, and we got to deal with this massive growth in the amount of trash and recyclables that are going to show up.
I mean, you know, I've got one subdivision, 12,000 1-acre lots.
Sorry, this is solid waste site.
And that is
Solid waste. We're on solid waste.
Right.
solid waste. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 12,000 lots at 1-acre subdivision. EPA rule of thumb, usually what, about 5 tons a year per house per lot. So the idea is, yes, you're right. That's going to increase the amount of solid waste generation countywide. And that study is going to look into it, because we have not expanded our transfer station since they were constructed.
Well, and it's going to have to be inside the subdivision, because you can't get out on the highway.
Right. So the idea is, remember, I floated the concept of either let's do what Europe does, but these 3 cubic yard bins at the end of the subdivision, and one of our trucks will go pick it up once a week. So you have 3 different colors of 3 cubic yards, or you could have an enclosure within the subdivision. You treat it like an apartment complex, where you, in apartment settings, they have refuse collection through the association, right? So, you know, garbage truck comes in, picks up the 3 cubic yard bins twice a week or once a week. And maybe that's how we need to set up these new subdivisions, rather than them driving to the transfer station. Maybe it'll be set up as a requirement in the subdivision code. That's why I want, you know, I reached out to you guys before about commenting on the subdivision code that is being reviewed and being changed as we speak. Because to me, that's when the change is going to take place, is if the code is being revised. To me, under the subdivision code, they should allow developers to include solid waste enclosures within the subdivision, and maybe either create an association just for collection within that subdivision, or you know, you do what Europe doing, just, you know, put it outside the, you know, the subdivision, where as you driving out your house to your work, you carry your garbage bag and you dump it in that 3 cubic yard container that will be picked up. So, you know, there's many things that we could do. It's a matter of just changing the codes and get everybody buy off.
Well, I can tell you as far as HPP is concerned, and as far as INLO is concerned, there were set aside for public uses in those subdivisions when they were approved. But the county has never gone to get theirs, as it were. They're actually there.
What do you mean to get theirs? To get theirs as a transfer station, or to get
Yes.
theirs?
What, for public purposes, those TMK set aside for public purposes.
Well, see, it goes back again to the concept of property, because now everybody's paying property tax. They just, you know, that service become part of that obligation as well. We've seen the same thing in Ocean View transfer station. Remember, the money was set aside prior to the subdivision, but the amount of money that was set aside, it became very pennies in comparison to the cost of construction.
Oh, yeah.
We spent $2 million just allowing the right turns from the highway. Just, you know, $2 million. It took all the money that's supposed to go to the transfer station. So, yeah, the equation is not there to be able to generate even revenues to offset the cost to build the infrastructure. That's why we need to look at a smaller model that could achieve the same objectives, but more efficient and cheaper than just building another transfer station. Because you just said it, John, if you only have one road in, one road out, it's gonna even make it harder for our guys to drive in and out with their big vehicles as well.
You're gonna go into the subdivisions.
Right.
So, I mean, it's gotta be internal to them because there's just too many of them.
Yeah, that's why, you know, if we start controlling it at the source, start doing home composting, start, doing diversion, encourage through public education, the residents to start reducing before it comes to us. And that's the intent, right? I mean, especially you have 1 acre, it's hard to get there. How are you going to become sustainable? You know, and a lot of people, I would imagine, already doing it when it comes to, you know, leftover food, green waste and what have you. They're doing it within their backyard, and
Right.
They do it compost and what have you. We just need to control it and provide public education at the source itself. It's a challenge, John. We'll get there. 12,000 lots. It's not only solid waste. You're going to see the challenge with the wastewater as well. 12,000 lots at 1,000 gallons per day. That's 12 million gallons per day of sewer, of effluent penetrating into your groundwater. So yeah, we'll get there.
Tell me about it. I've only been chewing on this bone for 35 years.
It could be a zoning challenge as well, because as we present the wastewater, let me finish the solid waste and I'll link the wastewater into the same issue.
Thank you.
So item number 4 is the Waiahino Recycling Transfer Station. We're gonna have blessing ceremony June 9th. So the facility is going to be 100% construction complete. So I just want to bring it to your attention that, if you guys want to attend, especially the people that live in that area, it's scheduled for June 9th. So that will, let me talk to Greg. Have I missed anything as far as the solid waste before I move to the wastewater?
You covered everything, basically.
Do you want to bring the recent update and your success in fighting the used motor oil? And it's back to normal operation? You want to?
Oh, yeah, so we had a call with one of the council members had a call about their garage or their mechanic stopped doing oil changes because the pickups weren't coming. Like the Hawai'i Petroleum or Unitech were backed up due to inventory. So they're trying to find an end market for it. And that was back in January. So after meeting with them and communicating with them, they said they're slowly getting back to normal.
Yeah, and kudos to you, Greg, and Councilmember Inaba and our staff for reaching out to these commercial entities to encourage them and work with them to bring that program back to life. Because really, a lot of people got worried about, golly, I cannot take my car now and do oil change because nobody's taking that oil.
Mm-hmm.
And we were afraid that people was going to start dumping it in the sewer or just dump it in the gutter and let it drain down the drain, right? Storm drain. So thanks to staff, you know, it took us about 4 months, but we back on track. Just, I thought, you know, you guys need to know about it as well.
Thanks.
So the wastewater division projects, Chris, do you wanna, is he still?
Chris Lord is not on.
Okay.
He's not on, but wait, I'll ask a question. I had a couple on item 5, which are solid waste questions. I was trying to chase back through the code issue, the zoning code issue, and got kind of a response pointing fingers both directions, that that's not the planning commission responsibility or organization, department. It's DEM that looks at construction projects, new construction projects, and they've got a review process that if someone's going to build a new building, not your bathroom renovation, but you're going to build a new building, you need to have a solid waste management plan, and it has these components, and DEM approves it or not. It looked like there was, actually I found there was a new thing that was just signed May 4th. And it wasn't clear to me, and so that's my question. I was able to sneak in. What did you change? And what do you do to approve these solid waste management plans for big construction projects?
Are you talking about construction project, or are you talking about subdivisions projects?
I mean, a subdivision, you know, they're putting in a new subdivision, or they're building a new building. There's oh, I don't have it in all this pile of stuff I brought. There's a requirement that the contractor submit a solid waste management plan. And it's just been rewritten or reissued and had a little bit more detail in it. And I was just wondering what the background on that was. And if you don't know, I'll bring it back next time. But it appeared to me that, yeah, the contractor, which I guess Zendo used to be, will write one up, but it's kind of, you write up what you want to write up, and you need to follow what you wrote up. But DEM really isn't instructing, you've got to do this, or here's a way that you can recycle, here's how you can reuse, reduce the amount of construction waste you're generating. So So I was just curious how that actually processed, or whether it was just rubber stamp. Oh yeah, they did up a plan. You can go ahead and build. Nope, there's the group. It went away. Mayfield. So there are components that need to be in there, and you need to explain what you're going to do with it. It just wasn't, there's a required plan, but not necessarily particular standards or goals that need to be met.
Right. The current process now, any project comes through the planning, they send it to every department for review and comments. And as far as how it's going to impact the solid waste versus the wastewater, if the intent is, and that's the review process for development, subdivision, commercial, industrial, whatever that, or zone change. So it comes through us to kind of dictate, okay, how it's going to impact the project, the solid waste facilities, this project, how this project is going to impact our operation. So we comment on it through that process. But if there's a construction going, demolition, currently we don't have any ordinances, county ordinances says that any construction project within the county shall be subject to, diversion and recycling. So maybe that's what we need to do. If we need to start, encouraging construction projects within the county to start implementing diversion and recycling programs, maybe we should do it as a county ordinances, but that will bring the cost of construction up. It's already sky high. And I've seen it. I've seen our project comes on 4 times the engineer's estimate. And that's without diversion requirement and recycling. But definitely we need to think about inert material. We need to think about C&D, construction demolition material, that's taking space on our landfills. We need to start giving incentive to these private entities that willing to come and turn that to something useful. It's a matter of just attracting private entities, recyclers to come in and start taking that and put it to recycling and divert it away from the landfill. So I guess one way of achieving that is through county ordinances to make sure that any construction projects within the county has to go through plan submittals of diversion and recycling plan for approval. I don't know if, I think it's kind of catch-22, right? We don't have the infrastructure and manufacturing to take that product and convert it. Therefore, could we really ask contractor to do that?
No, I understand. I mean, that's back to this concept I've got of banning landfill and requiring recycle, but only if you've got a way to do it. And C&D was down on my list as we're not ready for that yet.
Right.
We keep trying to get reuse. Hawai'i, who does C&D recovery for reuse, to show up here at our meeting, and we just need to keep working at it. Maybe that's what I'll stop there on the way home and say, guys, come and talk to us. Tell us what you're about. We've got one outfit that'll do that on island right now. Mm-hmm. Whether they can expand or whether we figure out a way to incentivize competition, because now we'll say, well, we're banning it, so there you've got guaranteed business coming to you. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that's sitting there on on the list of, it's something that in the future we ought to be able to require. So I was just curious as I was doing some backgrounding on just how hard you come down on people to reduce the amount of waste going to your landfill. The other question I had, and you talked about the operations analysis. So you addressed item 5, thanks, very good. So wastewater, did you find Chris? Is he back on? Or
I don't see him, he's back on, but yeah, the wastewater, Pahala Nale, who is moving forward as per schedule. We submitted the preliminary engineering report way in advance to EPA. I see Kelly, she could probably go through the schedule of percentage complete. Is she?
Yep, yeah, so.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it, okay. So as Ramsey mentioned, we submitted the feasibility report in October, held public meetings and the April quarterly meeting with EPA. We completed the draft PER ahead of schedule, and that's currently being reviewed by the EPA. The environmental information document contract scope is being developed right now. And the Nalehu PER contract is in negotiation. We're working on a MOA with SHPD to streamline how we do state historic preservation reviews for such a large scale conversion. So the milestones on deck for Pahala and Nalehu. So the EPA is reviewing and will hopefully approve the Pahala PER. We have the July semi-annual report coming up in 2 months. And the environmental information document for Pahala is due 180 days once the PER is approved. And then we'll start working on the cesspool closure implementation plan, which is due 30 days after the approval of the information document.
It's great you're ahead of schedule on things. And the website, are people using it? It's really cool.
So we have the Pahala website on the DEM website right now, and we can't do analytics with it. We're currently in the middle of a website upgrade. And so, about 8 months from now, we'll be able to run analytics, and we'll have a section for all of our projects on the website.
Any questions, comments about that project? You getting good vibes from EPA?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've been really happy with what we've done. I think our team that we put together for this project is really solid. We meet, weekly, at least weekly, just internally. And we're ahead of schedule, and we meet with EPA and kind of deal with anything we anticipate, any issues to kind of work those things out. So good vibes from EPA.
Good. That's great. Onward.
Kelly, you want to give us an update on Puna and the master plan you're working on the west side and east side?
Sure. So the Puna project's on schedule. We have finished the project definition report. We filed the draft PEIS to the State Environmental Review Program last month. So we're currently in the comment period for that. So if you want to leave comments, you have until the 7th of next month, June. And you can go to the website for that. There's a link. You can directly submit a comment there. We would appreciate that. So our consultant completed the draft facility plan. It's currently under county review. We recently held a workshop to discuss some of the rates. The milestones on deck for Puna, like I said, 45-day comment period ends June 7th. And we will submit the final PEIS. I didn't write a date down for that, but I believe it's after the facility plan, which is, excuse me, the final is due August 31st. That's our target deadline anyway. And then the final facility plan is also going to be drafted in August.
Good job.
Yeah, so we had our meeting with the consultant. So we are planning on presenting that report to County Council, the administration, and the commission as well. So I encourage you, once we set the date, to tune in either by person or Zoom, because it's they did a very comprehensive report and options. Things are not cheap. You know, your prices, I mean, it just, we talk about in the tens of billions of dollars. So I'm sure you guys have seen the report, but it's because try to build something from nothing, it's very expensive. You're gonna tear up roads, you're gonna build up a whole structure after the fact, because everything is being built. So definitely is gonna bring a lot of discussion.
Well, let me, you got 80,000 vacant lots in Puna that have been paying property taxes since 1960. Vacant land for which the county has been collecting property tax. So we want our money back.
Well,
show me the money.
Yeah, it's
like we didn't pay for it already. In spades. Everything that you look at in Hilo today was built with Puna's property taxes. I have that from the woman who was the chair of the council when that was done, Helene Hale.
But my understanding, her intention was to subdivide to generate revenue to. What was the intention of that subdivision?
Which subdivision?
The 12,000 lots. It just to generate revenue, correct?
Hawaiian Paradise Park.
Yeah.
12,000 1 acre lots. People paid property taxes long before anybody ever moved in there.
Yeah, because the idea was they never thought they could move in there.
They were counting on it. Guess they pulled the wrong straw.
Yeah. I mean, remember, property tax could give you the services, you know, from a police services to parks and what have you, but it doesn't give you wastewater services. That wastewater services should have been provided during the subdivision by the developer who's subdividing.
Hilo get the money to build theirs.
I hear you. I know. Where's Hilo's getting the money now to rehab?
Well,
yeah, that's ongoing discussion. You're right. I mean, that's why I remember last time I recommended maybe we should do the entire county as a sewer district, so everybody get a piece of that pie because you're already paying for it.
Well, again, people paid for infrastructure that they did not get and still don't have.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's not 1 acre of public park in HPP. There's not 1 acre of public park in Nanabali. There's not 1 acre in, you know, pick one. Pick a subdivision. It isn't there. Does not exist.
Yeah, maybe that's a discussion you could have with Zinda because that's a planning issue. It goes back to,
Zinda's heard this.
Yeah, so it goes back.
What? item are
It
we
goes back to the zoning, right? Because that's within zone 1 to eruption areas. So the idea is even you spend $35 billion building a facility, 2 years later is going to get buried under lava. So these are the challenges. That area, should it continue going, or I don't know, it's a big challenge.
Well, the
Is
thing
the
is,
property tax worth the infrastructure cost that potentially have a very high risk factor?
but they knew the risk when they allowed the subdivision.
I don't know if they did, John. That's my
No,
understanding way back in the old days.
I had face-to-face with the geologist that told the county what the risks were going to be. Just like, you know, again, we go back to Helene Hale, who was the chair of the county council back then. They knew. Have you read Land and Power in Hawaii?
Yeah, you told me. I bought the book. I was able to. I attended. Actually, it was over a weekend. I went to drink my coffee on North Kahala, and there's that little library shop. They had the only book, so I ended up buying it. Thank you, John.
There you go.
I added to my collection. So yes, it's a tough one, but you know,
I mean, it's the dog they bought. No.
Well, I guess I'd like to bring it back to what can EMC do about it?
Right.
It is a huge political issue of stupid decisions made decades ago. And here we are. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna pay for it? I mean, it's a cesspool issue. None of it passed. Guys.
Well, that's what I think.
You know, decades ago, before I moved here, I'm sorry, but you did a bum deal. It's kind of like the Superfund program in a way. It was perfectly legal to bury a lot of that stuff back when they buried it. They had permission, they got permits to build, so they did.
But the funny thing with the Superfund sites, the Department of Energy and Defense paid for it. This one, who's going to pay for it?
Well,
that's a challenge.
And it's big companies. We have hardly any big companies here. We don't have anybody to stick it to, other than tourists. We can always stick it to the tourists, right?
My recommendation: review the report, look at the analysis, and the cost and the options, and start generating feedback.
So are you able to access, have you looked at that stuff on the website?
Which?
For Puna, the Puna Pound thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of them, you know, like Land and Power in Hawaii with the book.
No, the current
No, John, we're talking about the report that Kelly put out for review.
There's a website.
I'm sorry.
There's a website that Kelly created for the Puna district.
Okay, no, I haven't posted that. I mean.
So just to be clear, the facility plan has not been published publicly yet. We needed to discuss that internally. We need to have a follow-up meeting with county council. So what you're going to find on the website is, you know, an explanation of the project, links to the programmatic impact statement. Yeah, some of the, just kind of a summary, but the facility plan with the costs is not public yet. I'd be happy to share that with the EMC, but I understand maybe once we do, it's public, so I'm not too sure.
I mean, the point is that the people who own the lots, who are building on the lots, living on the lots, paid for services they're not getting. They paid their taxes in good faith.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big legal issue, boggled my mind since I started as well, John. In different municipality, we call it, California, we call it the 218 process, right? Prop 218 prohibit any funds from a non-users to go toward people that receive the service. So if you're not paying for the service, you should not be charged. And that's what Prop 218 was. But here we don't have it. So unless somebody end up suing the county or the state and become a state-sided case, then that's probably being enforced. But currently, everything is getting funded by general fund, either through obligation bonds or through some type of funding mechanism that we all pay for it. I hear you loud. I know exactly what you're referring to when you say everybody's living there paying for Hilo and Kalakahe users, but they not getting the service. I understand it. I've been there. You know, with the 218 process. So I mean, there's different sided law cases, but I don't know how it's going to apply to Hawaii because we don't have any Hawaii Supreme Court or regular court citing a decision pertaining to that example.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering, and maybe Sherry, you could advise, are we within charter for EMC to talk about the mistakes made in the past and how it gets funded? It seems like it's a legal and a political issue, and I'm not sure we're the ones to solve it or address it.
You're not.
We're not.
And you're not going to be able to reverse something that was done 30 or 40 years ago. You can advise the department on current policy and, you know, things going forward, but you don't have a mechanism to fix what happened in the past.
We're here to point out the need.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what John is referring to is not going 30 years. What he's saying is the continuation of everybody else is paying for services not receiving, but yet who's going to pay for the infrastructure for Puna community because they have been paying for it. That's, I think, what he's saying. And
is a private subdivision.
What is it? I'm sorry.
She asked if it was developed as a private subdivision.
Which?
Yeah, it was all of them private subdivisions. Yeah. They all private subdivision, but you know, as a private subdivision, even if we have tomorrow or today, we have a new subdivision. If that subdivision not connected to sewer, they eventually indirectly paying for sewer by covering the general obligation bonds because it get covered by general fund. And that's what John is referring to. Indirectly, everybody on the island paying for sewer services they're not getting.
Yep.
I hear you. I know but it's very complicated unless we get sued and the court find, you know, and then it's going to wake up people up and say, it's a scary.
Well, I don't think it's the role of EMC to recommend somebody sue the county. No. So I'm gonna pull the plug on this discussion.
Well, it wasn't necessarily
I'm not
about the suit part of it.
The fact that we need to fund wastewater management infrastructure in South Hawaii Island.
We need
to
transfer stations. We need to be putting in the sewers. We need to be putting in the all of those things. Yeah. The people who, in good faith, bought the property with the understanding that their tax dollars would go forward.
I understand the argument that you're making. Yeah. And the reverse to that is we have asked the department, and the council, I think, understands that. We've asked for an integrated wastewater management. We've got an integrated solid waste management plan, and identifying the infrastructure we need, the services that we need to keep the island going. And we're looking at, or the focus, I think, of this one is, how do we get that infrastructure to happen?
Right.
But
I mean,
you need to have an overall plan for it. And that's a big part of the need. And I think everybody knows it. It's just, okay, we got to figure out how we're going to get from here to there.
Right. It just a reminder, John, you know that when Hilo was constructed, it was triggered based on a lawsuit that constructed Hilo. I think you guys were, Sierra Club was part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Georgianne, it's complicated, but we'll share with you the study. And hopefully the intent is not, like I said, I know you guys think the county is going to fund $35 billion facility.
Well,
it's a complicated issue, but we
can. The judge orders it. Is that going to be?
So Georgine, this is Dell.
Adele, thanks.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to add a couple of things based on all this discussion about knowing what we've done is a disservice or an injustice to the people paying for services they're not getting. What about, rather than not do anything and say we can't do anything, maybe looking towards something on a credit, for the people who have been paying. I mean, it's all complicated, but that's something that we can do to kind of remedy, or at least, in good faith, address it so that they don't have to continue paying. And once they do get service, they're being credited for that service. That's just a thought. And since I have your attention, I have one more thought on the trash pickup at subdivisions or new developments coming up. If they were to put a designated place to pick up the trash in a residential development, how would they do that? Would the trash pickup place be considered residential or public use or?
Public use.
Yeah, so anyway, those are the two things I have to say or ask.
I mean, again, using HPP as the model, or Nanavali as the model, because those were two of the earliest subdivisions. The set-asides in terms of the property itself exists and are in the charge of the existing associations. So you're not going to have to buy land, but you are going to have to put in the infrastructure.
Maybe we should, since we got all the revenue from that area.
Say again.
Could you repeat that?
Oh, I said, maybe we should invest in doing that, because after all, they did pay for services they're not getting. We can probably redirect it to that.
The other thing is, once they build on it, you start getting property taxes for which you are only getting a minimal now. Of course, you've gotten the minimal for 50 years, but.
Well, maybe they can, that's where they would apply the credit or figure a way. I mean, I know it's complicated, but there's a way we can try and credit them, or at least do something so that they don't have to pay for something they've already paid for.
Well, but I mean, building
at a higher fee.
It's going to be the cheap part, because you're not buying the land. The land was set aside.
Right. Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. If they're going to designate.
Well, I hear you. You're saying that the idea of one way to recompense the people John is talking about is to provide them with a credit. The deeper thing is, where are we getting the money to build all this stuff? That's
where the general fund, or so then I would be curious,
is used.
No, so I would be curious to know then how much revenue the county got from all those fees that actually were paid for and no services given. I mean, they must have, after all these years, got a lot.
I can tell you that, and it sounds ridiculous, but you know, in 1960, $5 would buy you a tank full of gas.
Yeah, so, but you know, so it's been several decades. So I'm just saying, you know, where are we going to get the money for that? Well, you know, they paid so much into it, and I'm curious to find out now how much money was collected from all of them. And so now it's looking to find money to put something there that should have been there, is all I'm saying.
Oh,
but you know,
I've seen the books. I mean,
okay, we need to move on.
Hey, yeah, we need to go and something.
No, thank you for
This, you know, I appreciate the idea and the concept of credit. I think the big issue that we beat on forevermore, and back up to new business, trying to figure out how to do it for solid waste. I mean, the same thing. How do we fund our wastewater services? And right now we're trying to grab money from all the grants that the feds are doing, but they crash our credit in a week or so. We won't have to worry about anything anymore. Any rate, I'm not sure, and I guess I would ask you to think about, okay, what are some specific actions that EMC can do to help address the need? I don't think it's a secret to the council that there's a lack of infrastructure. I don't know that it's within the wherewithal of the EMC to come up with the answers.
No.
So if you've got something concrete, bring it to next meeting, and we'll talk about whether or not it's something that we should move to put together recommendations to council and DEM. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Del? Sorry to have ignored you.
Thank you. No, I was paying attention, but no, that's it for now. Those two things.
Okay, well, like I said, I mean, you're welcome. I feel embarrassed that I'm the one that keeps putting these crazy drafts in, but you're welcome to come up with some ideas as well for us to review and decide if it's something EMC should propose. But the last item in this section is item 6, answered my questions on 5. 6.1, and that was just to let you know we asked DEM last time to ask the state, DOH Solid Waste Group, have you guys ever looked at the concept of expanding fees, advanced disposal fees? And so Ramsey did send a letter, and that's in, is it in the packet?
It's in the packet. It's not. I'll put it up on the screen.
Okay, so he did write the letter. We'll see. I expect the answer will be no, we haven't done anything looking at additional advanced disposal fees. Thank you very much. Nor do we plan to, but we'll see what they come back with. But I think what we learned was maybe a dead end there. But you can try thinking about state. We would probably need to get a state law passed.
Well, it would be basically, yeah, it would come from the a portion to property tax and a portion from sales tax.
This is talking about
this is the advanced, the point of sale, your point of sale fee idea that would have to come from the state.
Well, they collect the money through the tax.
Right, but the state would have to issue the regulation or the law that says thou shalt pay an advance, right? Because
specific to where we are. Is that, am I getting this close?
So at our last meeting, Kira presented her research on the advanced point of sale. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
And so
Disposal.
EMC,
disposal.
sorry, yeah, point of sale disposal fee.
Mhm.
So EMC asked the department to inquire with the state about whether they have done research or not, and if they have not, to do it. And so that has been done. We sent it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the holding.
We're in holding, yeah. We'll see what the response is. I assume our next potential step would be to go to council and say, we think you ought to put this in your list of things to press for as a state action.
Yes. When we get the response, then it would be an appropriate time to take the next step, because maybe they'll say they did it. We don't know. So we should wait for the response, and then potentially if they have done nothing, that could be something EMC can consider.
Okay.
Then it comes back to us and we could possibly do something on the county level.
No.
We can't.
We cannot.
No kind of sales tax or fee.
It has to be from the state.
Okay, but a fee. A
Yes.
disposal fee.
Yes.
That would have to come from the state too.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have a clarification question.
Sure. Laura.
On that, the idea would be if they have or have not, we analyze that information, and then we could push the county to recommend to the state to implement more options for point of sale, which would be geared towards a consumer.
Right, retail purchases. Yes, you'd see it up front, kind of like the deposit for high five.
Yeah.
As opposed to pursuing something from the producer end, which their business models are the ones that are producing the waste that folks are consuming. And so it is, of course, multifaceted in terms of who's driving the waste, but in terms of the business models that are producing it, which is why I continue to go back to a non-PRO model, or a model of extended producer responsibility, and what I guess the capacity for the EMC to perhaps push the council. I mean, if it's all these steps going towards ultimately a state legislation to begin with, I think we also would want to look at really pushing for producer responsibility also in conjunction or in lieu of putting more tax on the retail end and the consumer end.
Well, what we were looking at was what are the avenues that are open to the county? And I believe the county is not the place to do an EPR.
Or point of sale, yeah.
Or point of sale, that would come from the state. And there are state bills that have been in process, are still working forward, trying to figure out how to do an EPR. So I said that the effort I was looking at was, well, what could the county level do? I mean, the county can ban the sale of certain materials if it wants to go there. But that's probably not the most efficient way to accomplish things. But it's trying to look at where the point of authority, basically, and impact. And some have got to be at the state level.
So in a sense,
certainly be supportive of a state level effort, but
right. And it would perhaps be a resolution to the state to say, please support this. The county feels like it's important.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda items that people wanted to address? And going to future agenda items, item 8. We've got a couple things that I need to go back through my notes to remember. what we've talked about today to bring forward. I will come back and I'll be talking with Laura with some drafts on how to scope out, begin to scope out the county ordinance dealing with certain recyclable waste that we can start pushing for restricting from landfilling. And if there are some ideas you guys have about the wastewater issue, Puna, go for it. We are and have invited Doug Adams, the director of, no relation, director of research and development, to come and talk about what he knows about this UMET biochar resolution activity that was passed by council. And we may expand some of the questions we ask, since we'll have him, but we won't only have him for like 20-30 minutes. So we won't have to be able to go too deep, but it's a resource. Well, I know what we didn't cover. And I thought I had it in here. Maybe it didn't. I think it was back in number 4. We skipped over number 4 under the director's report, and that's a climate action plan. Is Ramsey still there, or has he run away?
No, I'm still here, as I was having you to tell you I'll be back in a few. I was gonna step out the office for a few minutes. Yeah, the mayor planning was working on action plan. The mayor adopted it. I think it was out, Peter. So was that shared with EMC?
We've got the link to the draft integrated climate action plan, and there are a couple of sections in there where DEM has put things that they're already planning for that'll, you don't contribute to climate, you're taking away from future emissions to help with the climate action. But just wanted to hear if there were any additional things that you've done. And there was convoluted budget amendment that would fund a new office of sustainability.
Yeah, the resilience.
Climate equity and resilience, Oscar. Right. So they got money approved, but the final budget hasn't been approved, has it? No. So it's still got another round. Anyway, they approved the budget, but they didn't approve establishing this office that would take out some things from R&D that's being done and create more things. And that the only thing they were missing there was and coconut pie, but they had climate action. DEM has contributed to that plan. Is there anything you're comfortable with or uncomfortable with that you'd like EMC input on climate action?
So far, it's okay with DM. If you guys have not reviewed what was out for the members that have not reviewed it and they want to add comments, it's opportunity to review what's out there and what planning department had put out. Because I know they worked with all departments and they got comments from other departments as well. So
yeah, I would just recommend people that the link is there to the plan.
Right.
You can go through it. If you personally want to submit comments, you're welcome to. You'll see what I submitted. But also know that the DEM, I mean, basically anything anybody does affects climate. So most of our programs where we're looking at reducing waste or managing or recovering the generation of methane or whatever it may be from DEM operations would help to mitigate climate change. So just wanted to make sure you were aware of it, and if there was something we needed to do. I don't particularly see a big need for DEM to change or do what you're doing. I think you appropriately identified your activities, but climate's everything now. That's where all the money is. It's where all the politics are. It's going to end life as we know it on the planet. So it's something to pay attention and be aware of how it could impact DEM. So that was 7.4. So back to future agendas in 8.1 was Doug Adams is coming. If you've got some other questions you'd like him to address, let me know and I'll try to work it into the agenda. And obviously, if you've got any other topics you want to discuss, welcome to send them to me and Peter, and we'll try and figure out how to put them in the next agenda.
Chair, can I shoot?
Jan, this is, sorry.
Who all speaking?
This is Del, Georgianne.
Okay,
I know I recommended or I suggested that Stacy Brenner from the Hawaii Wildlife Foundation talk to us. She just got back to me, and so she said she'll be able to probably do the June 23rd one if you want to add her on to the agenda. So
okay.
Send the information that you said she needed, and then I'll forward it to you and Peter.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, also wondering if Director Ramsey could, or the DEM could give us some information about the polymer that's added to the sludge at the wastewater treatment, and just a little bit more details on what that is and why it's put in there, and some of those details. But for the next agenda, in case they need to do some looking up.
Oh, can I ask for one more thing, Georgianne? This is Del.
Yeah.
We didn't discuss Christine Cabot letter to us the last time. Were we going to on her
testimony she provided at last meeting?
Yeah. Were we going to even discuss any of that?
If you would like to, I need to get it on the agenda, and we can go back. So tell me.
Yeah, because I have questions about it. About the what was that?
So
Zero waste to what was that? Wait, well, I had a letter, but
well, again, come back to Peter and me on what it is you would like characterized.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that.
We can get it.
I'll be more specific.
Yeah, we can
put
it up as discussion. We could invite Christine if you want to explain anything. And I'm totally blanking on what you did last time.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
But there was the concern about the budget meeting. So yeah, I'll send you the specifics. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, on that same note, I believe that Christine Kubat, representing Recycle Hawaii, is currently en route to the intergovernmental program at the United Nations on plastic reduction for the climate, issues that we face. And so it would be nice also to, at some point in the near future, ask her to report on that in terms of what, if there are any intergovernmental recommendations for us here in the EMC relating to reduction of plastic pollution.
Okay.
Good. And I think Stacy Brennan can share on that too.
Again, our challenge is having an agenda item that we can publish for public consumption, and any materials that we may want to have in the commission package for the meeting. So just send them off to Peter and I, and we'll craft it.
Okay, thank you.
So speaking of next meetings, that's our, or any other ideas for future agenda? I said, it's easier if you send it to me and then we can go back and forth and clarify just what we ought to put on the agenda. Announcements, number 9, Friday, June 23rd in Hilo, and a Zoom as well. So we went to Friday partly because we're not going to have Peter, and Peter keeps us on track, and I don't want to not have a meeting without his assistance. The survey looked like June 23rd would work for most of us. I might even be willing to drive over to Hilo. I haven't been there in forever, and I have a gift certificate to Big Island Candy. So, hey, important things. We're still struggling, I think, to be able to find a day that we can all make. It's getting frustrating. We're been too close to not having quorum. Although I appreciate all of you who've showed up today. So that's about the only announcement I have. Is there anything else, Peter, I should comment on? All right. It's 11:06. I promised a shorter meeting this time. I didn't give anybody a bathroom break. I'm terrible. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Sorry, who are you recognizing?
I'm recognizing John, number 1, and Lee, number 2.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, guys.
Great.